The Flames look to bounce back in their back-to-back games against Florida Panthers and Carolina Hurricanes, but will they actually be able to do it?
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Today, I thought that we could take some time to preview this weekend's back-to-back against the Florida Panthers and Carolina Hurricanes and what the Flames need to do to stay out of their own way, because this is something they do so often. They get in their own way and just fall apart. So let's talk about that and then some on today's episode of Locked On Flames. But before we do that, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And while you're here, make sure you check out Locked On Florida Panthers as well as Locked On Hurricanes to get the scoop on the enemy. So let's talk about bouncing back, right? The Flames, we knew this road trip was going to be tough. We knew that it kind of just felt like scheduled losses for a majority of these games. And Tampa was certainly one of them. And now they're going to look to rebound against the reigning Stanley Cup champions. It looks as if they are relaxed, soaking up the sun, and kind of just getting themselves to a nice relaxed point so they're focused for the game tomorrow afternoon. And obviously, this is a Ryan Lomberg return to Florida for the first time since free agency. And I think that there's obviously a lot of emotions behind that. You know, you win a Stanley Cup there and then you leave a few months later and now you're back. Like you're back where you made a name for yourself. And then obviously you have Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar, who have played there since being traded, obviously, but they still have friends there. Those friends won a Stanley Cup without them. The player that they traded for or were traded for won that Stanley Cup, something that they had been working so hard towards and to reach for and did not get to reap the benefits. But I think that this is a good example of finding it from within to win and finding different ways to win, because we know that the Florida Panthers can score. That's not a surprise. That's not a shocking statement to anyone. But we also know that Bobrovsky can stop some nasty pucks regardless, and the Flames just have a hard time scoring. However, I do feel like when they have these emotions riling them up, like true genuine emotions and not manufactured ones, they're able to find new ways to win. They're able to think quickly on their feet, execute plays better, and really use that as motivation. And I know that this team is full of hungry underdogs, and there's nothing they want more than to win. And I want to see it. This also looks like it's going to be Vladar in net, which I understand. I do, because obviously he won the game against Washington. Wolf lost. And that, like, it makes sense, but for me personally, I want to see Dustin Wolf get this one back. I want to see him, go out there and refine that confidence after getting blanked, or I guess his team couldn't score for him, and after being 3-0, like, that's not exactly a great what's the word? A great look, great performance. I mean, he had some immaculate saves, but at the end of the day, I don't think it necessarily falls on him entirely. I do think a lot of it does obviously come down to the offense, but I would just like to see him in net. And maybe it makes sense so he can start the game against Carolina and then we move forward as the road trip continues to the latter half of it, which feels crazy. But no Matthew Tkachuk. I'm kind of glad. I obviously hope he's doing well. He's out with a lower body injury. But for me, I don't like playing teams that are overly physical. The Florida Panthers are a team that are very physical, and I feel like they're not properly penalized for it. I feel like they're able to get away with a lot, and I wouldn't call them a disciplined team. I don't think they're disciplined. I think that a team like Carolina Hurricanes, who we'll talk about a little bit later, are more disciplined. But you can't let them get you in trouble. You have to toe a fine line. And I'm sure that we'll see it. You know, these guys aren't strangers to each other. There's a lot of deep emotions there, and I'm sure we'll see it. They'll leave it all out on the ice. And if I had to do a score prediction, I'm gonna say 4-2 Panthers. Just because. And I think it's Jonathan Huberdeau that scores for the Flames. And it would be nice for Connor Zary to score as well. But coming up next, we're going to talk more about this second half of the back-to-back against the Carolina Hurricanes and just what happens when you don't have a true identity as a team here on Locked On Flames. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets in a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because I will cook up some same game parlays in the group chat, making sure everything sounds right, sounds like a good way to go. You know, Jonathan Huberdeau power play goal, Nazem Kadri 3+ shots on net, and probably a Carter Verhaeghe anytime goal. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And let's talk about the Carolina Hurricanes. This team confuses me because I feel like this is a very they have an aura about them, I guess. And I don't want to say it's a boys club because when I think of boys club, I think like more so the Islanders, but it's definitely like it's a gentleman's game. Everyone is in, tip-top shape. There's not an ounce of body fat on any of these players. They are in the best shapes of their lives. And if they're not, then they get in the best shapes of their lives. And you are expected to meet this expectation. of sustaining that. And I don't know if there's really an identity like outside of that. And I don't know if I necessarily like verbalize that the right way, but to me, there is just like that very distinct aura about them. And the the Canes have been very good over the last 5, 6 years, right? Back to back to back Eastern Conference Finals, but we're 3, 4, or not even 3, 4. We're years removed from that, and they still haven't been able to really crack the code. Obviously, I would put like the bubble playoffs and season kind of like as an asterisk, but it just doesn't feel like this team has done enough for the pieces that they have. To me, it is very reminiscent of the Flames 5 years ago. They have the pieces, they have um Svechnikov, they have Aho, they have Seth Jarvis, they have PK and net, they have Jacob Slavin. Like there are pieces to this puzzle that should be elevating you to that next level. And I guess I'm just kind of confused why it hasn't happened. I, I think that Rod Brindamore is a kind of a whiny coach, but he does a good job clearly because the culture there is strong because of the way he runs his team in his locker room. And I guess I'm just left scratching my head because you have great players like Mikko Rantanen gets traded there, and he's the team points leader. But like, let's look at the other points leaders because I feel like these are the guys that have been playing here all season. Aho has 57 points. Seth Jarvis, 23 goals and 23 assists. Svechnikov, 18 goals, 43 points. You have Shane Gostisbehere, who has 32 points, and Taylor Hall, who was acquired too. He's a -12. That's tough. That is very tough. There are good pieces here that should have you making consistently deep playoff runs, and you should be at the point where like you're cracking that cup final. In my opinion, they've had a lot of runs at it. They have a lot of great pieces. They have that high end scoring talent. They have the center depth. They have the defensive depth. What is holding them back? Is it themselves? I don't know. And I think one of the things that the Hurricanes do best is play a disciplined game during the regular season. I do feel like they do kind of crumble in the postseason, especially when they play the Rangers. It just all comes out. And this might be something that the Flames can kind of try to exploit. Get under their skin, do something. Like, obviously not anything ridiculous and reckless, but maybe something, you throw a big hit, or you just stay chirping them. Like, just chirp them after the whistle. Like, keep going. Keep running your mouth. Like, it doesn't even have to be anything physical. Just, I don't know. Tell Taylor Hall that he gets passed around like a cheese platter at a party. I don't know. I'm not an excellent chirper, unfortunately. But that's the only thing I can think of on the top of my head. The Flames just have to find a way to get under their skin and have their defenses come down and let the offense fly. Both teams will be on the second half of a back-to-back, so I do think it may be a little more evenly matched there. I do look at this Carolina, like, forward depth and just laugh in comparison to the Flames. I mean, you have Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, uh, uh, Kotkaniemi, and Roslovic. Like, you have good centers. Dmitry Orlov, Jacob Slavin, Brent Burns. Uh, you know, you have good forwards and defense, and obviously Svechnikov on the right wing, Jordan Martinook. There's a lot of good players here that kind of outweigh the Flames. Like this, I would love to have some of these players on the Flames roster. I think Sebastian Aho would be great. Seth Jarvis would be great. Even Svechnikov, like I feel like I don't want to say he could benefit from a change of scenery because he's like truly thrived in Carolina his entire career. But I mean, I would like for him to have a change of scenery in Calgary. Beautiful city, beautiful people, beautiful hockey team. But I think in order for the Flames to truly win this game, they're going to have to play mind games. They're going to have to exploit the Carolina Hurricanes' weaknesses. And that might take a lot of work, but it could be worth it. So it's just an idea. I would honestly assume that Dustin Wolf is starting because Vladar is starting against the Panthers, but just go out and expose them for what they are. Not saying they're frauds, but just remind everyone that you can hang with the big dogs, and it's not as hard as people may think it is for their team. But coming up next, we are going to talk about what the Flames actually truly need to do in order to win these two games and just have a successful road trip here on Locked On Flames. If you are like me, your mornings have to start with a good cup of coffee. But I got tired of settling for grocery store brands that just weren't cutting it. That is why I turned to Trade. And let me tell you about this coffee. Trade is the #1 specialty coffee marketplace in the U.S., bringing you fresh coffee from over 50 of the country's top roasters. Their experts have taste tested thousands of coffees, curating over 450 amazing roasts, whether you're new to coffee or you know exactly what you like. And they'll hand pick the perfect match for you. Right now, Trade is exclusively offering our listeners 40% off your first order at drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. That's drinktrade, TRADE.com/lockedon for 40% off of your first order. drinktrade.com/lockedonnhl. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. With this road trip comes a lot of questions, exhaustion, frustration, determination, hunger. And I think it's important for the Flames to not stray too far from their fundamentals. And I'm not talking about playing dump and chase hockey and, not generating the highest quality shots. No, we're not talking about that. The Flames have to go out there in back-to-back games and put on full 60-minute performances from start to finish. You need to play every shift as if it is your last. These 4 points matter, and I don't necessarily expect them to skate away with 4, But if they could get away with 2 or 3, that would be pretty neat. I want to see them all over the ice. I want to see them as energetic and driven as we've seen the fourth line in recent games. I really have thoughts about Michael Backlund being your second line center. To me, this does not work, but the Flames just aren't going to do anything about that. I saw that Zary is on a line with Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost, which I think, that line does seem to have some good potential. I think that if they were to get going, that would be probably one of your more productive lines. I think that along with your Huberdeau, Kadri, and Coronado line, like those 2 lines to me just scream like offensive production. And I want to see it. I want to see this offense come alive, but also look like you know how to draw up a play. You might not execute it perfectly 100% of the time, but just come up with something good. And remember, not you can shoot the puck. No one is going to zap you, or nothing bad's going to happen if you shoot the puck. If you overpass it, you're likely going to create a turnover and put your team at a complete disadvantage. Personally, I think we've seen too much of that this season. I would love to see a little bit less of that. I want to see obviously Kevin Ball back in the swing of things and just getting his footing back after missing all that time. And Rasmus Anderson obviously played in 4 Nations, so he didn't necessarily have the same type of rest as his other teammates, but that top pairing, I feel like we have to see a little bit more from. Anderson had a fantastic night against DC or Washington Capitals. 6 of his 8 blocked shots were shots from Ovechkin. Like no one's laying their life on the line like that. It's crazy. And I think that's good. It's good for him to remember that he can do those things because he is a good defenseman. And I think a lot of the Flames problems come from like within. I think that there might be a lack of confidence, and maybe that translates into their play on the ice, or maybe it is, getting in the way of them building chemistry with their line mates, or just doing anything that you would expect them to do. And I feel like we're seeing these bursts of confidence, though, like Matt Coronado and even Jonathan Huberdeau, both playing fantastic. Same with Kadri. I feel like age is not showing on him at all, and he's playing great. He still looks fantastic out there. Pospisil didn't skate today as it was just a maintenance day, so obviously I would fully expect him back in the lineup on the fourth line. I like what we've been seeing from the fourth line. I don't hate it. I truly thought that they were going to be the only ones to score in that Tampa game. So let's see if they can bring it to the rink this weekend and remind everyone that, if this fourth line can score, a line with a player making $10.5 million should be able to consistently score. And that's the other thing too. It's like, I want the Flames to find this from within. We know that I don't want to say a private locker room because that sounds weird, but they keep things internal. They do not talk about what they talk about in that room. They do not care what the media is saying. They don't care what I'm saying. Quite frankly, I don't know why they would, but they don't let the outside noise get to them. And I think that that's a great impressive factor of this team. And we noticed that last season too, especially around the deadline. But they don't get too caught up in what's happening off the ice, which is great. But they can't afford to get too caught up in what's going on the ice. Just keep it simple, stupid. I know that it's crazy. Don't let them get you in trouble. Don't take penalties that are completely undisciplined, that are, completely avoidable. Just don't do it. You're going to just make things a lot harder for yourself and your team, especially when you have a weak penalty kill. But that'll do it for me on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day.